9 days before the full moon, Princess Jessica sat in her chambers thumbing through a picture-painting album of her and her father.
Oh, Dad, why can't you snap out of it? Perhaps if Mom were around, she could harass you into one of your grand adventures. Maybe that could save you from this apathy.
The king had been showing signs of boredom, but it soon grew into a complete lack of will. In the years since the queen's disappearance, he had become Jessie's whole world, and to see him wasting away broke her soft heart. So, a day earlier in the twin towns of Hither and Yon, Princess Jessica decreed to marry any man who could entertain the king.
Mom, are you still out there? I could use some help.
No one knew where or how it happened, but the queen got blown to smithereens when Jessica was very young. Picture-painting albums weren't around back then, so Jessie had few reminders. Her remaining memories were sharpened each time she saw her own auburn hair and big brown eyes as she had grown to look just like her mother. Blaring trumpets followed by the slam of the drawbridge helped stifle her welling emotions. The distinctive sound of rockers with their runner-shaped hooves clopping into the castle courtyard heralded the first of surely many entertainers and possible suitors. Jessica ran down the steep stone stairs leading to the place where the men offloaded their carriages. As she peeked around the corner, she laughed for the first time in weeks. From this first carriage stepped forth a plumber and the plumber's helper dressed in players' clothes. Around the plumber's head clung a tight-fitting hood from which protruded his round, chubby face. His shirt must have been made when he stood as a thinner man, for now it couldn't possibly cover his belly. Though his trousers were larger than his hip line, his overhanging stomach pushed them down. The helper only came up to the plumber's waist. He wore a ridiculous hat that curled up and over to hang a little bell between his eyes. An ugly green jacket, having twin tails and bells at the tips, offset putridly with his yellow checkered pants.
Well, surely this motley crew will do the trick,
she whispered.
And if I do have to marry this fellow, at least we'll always have running water.
For a brief moment she cringed at the thought of life as the plumber's wife, but so great was her love for her father, any uneasiness passed. Jessie fled to the curtains behind the king's throne to watch in secret. A battery of royal knights burst through the doors and aligned the tapestry wall as the two plumbers frolicked and bumbled their way down a wide strip of blue carpet. Jessica and her father were partial to blue carpet over red carpet. Dancing and skipping around, they tried to be graceful while singing very poorly. The helper tapped his feet rapidly, throwing his hands all over and waving his arms. Occasionally he'd stomp his feet and shout, "Hey!" This display went on in vain until the two fell out, exhausted. Seeing their antics weren't working, Jessica came from behind the curtain, crying. The king continued to lie slumped in his chair, resting his head in one hand with his opposite foot drooped over the throne's arm. Days came and went along with throngs of unsuccessful entertainers. As each day passed, Jess noticed more and more of the castle staff acting like her father. Finally, 5 days after her marriage decree, people stopped coming. The gates were open, but not one rocker-drawn carriage rolled in.
I'm fed up with being scared and sad,
she yelled.
I'm the princess of the land of yore, and not some helpless maiden. I'll just pack everything needed for the journey of undetermined length and sneak off in my single-seater. At the very least, it'll be better than staying here, waiting to become a lazy slug.
Normally, her retainers would have questioned her every move and a guard would have been made to go with her, but as everyone had been overcome by lethargy, Jess made a clean getaway. She drove an hour out to the town of Yon. Even though her family ruled the entire land, she had developed her own little comfort zone of hither and yon in the lands to and from each. She thought someone, somewhere in her slice of the world would have the solution to the situation. To her dismay, Yon didn't hustle or bustle. The people just moped around exactly like at the castle. She drove slowly towards the center of town.
Is this some sort of biblical plague? Why haven't I been overtaken?
Her eyes caught a sight she'd never seen before as she spoke to herself.
Odd! That man has trimmed the gliders right off his rocker. How strange his feet look with rounded little tips.
Her train of thought came unhitched when a horrible growl echoed from just ahead of her. Excited by the change of pace, she goaded her rocker to find the source. In the middle of the town square stood an enormous and fearsome beast with the head, forearms, and calves of a wolf, but the body of a man. As menacing as it appeared to be, no one paid it any attention. Jessica recognized the creature as a Lobothian and knew all the stories that surrounded their kind. Therefore, it astounded her when people weren't running to guard their children as the creature screamed and swiped its arms at them. Fearing for her own safety, she kept driving along her original path and tried not to notice. As she passed, curiosity overcame her fear and she took a glance. The two made eye contact, and in that flash she saw great fear and sadness in its eyes.
"Thou canst see me,"
he shouted, but Jessie kept driving as she didn't know what to say or do. Her young mind raced with thoughts and emotions. Never had she been more scared, excited, sad, and lonely.
Oh, never have I been more entertained.
She laughed and smiled at all of the conflicting feelings. Driving the carriage around several city streets, she peeked back to see if the beast had followed. It had not, and as a feeling of safety returned, Jess picked up on another anomaly.
I am the Princess of Yore. How come no one is paying me any attention?
She slowed her rocker and addressed a peasant plodding along.
Good sir, do you know who I am?
She asked, puckishly. He paused, droop-eyed, with no expression in his face.
No? Some lady, I guess.
She threw her nose in the air.
I am your princess.
The man could not have sounded more flat.
I have a princess? Whatever.
He faced forward and continued his lumbering gait. Stunned by his complete disregard of status, she just sat back and mumbled to herself.
Well, not so much your princess as everyone's princess. The princess.
Processing further, she put some pieces together.
Okay, no one can see that I am royalty, and no one cares that a Lobothian beast is right in the center of town. Therefore, he and I have a connection, and I'm going to find out why.
She cracked the reins and drove her carriage back to the town square. The Lobothian had gone, but she could see its clawed tracks in the dust and figured it couldn't have gone far. Wanting to follow inconspicuously, she kept her rocker's pace very slow as she tracked the prince out of town. The further she went, more and more little unmarked paths split off from the main road until she lost the trail.
Well, crumbs on a cracker. It could have gone in any direction. I have no idea where to go.
Jessie continued south and west with ever unpleasant feelings of doubt and dismay. She allowed her panic to take over.
Oh, I have no plan. I can't go home, and I can't even imagine where I could end up.
Luckily, before hyperventilating, she came to a major crossroad.
Oh, thank heaven,
she shouted.
Well, I suppose you could thank heaven, but you only need to thank the highway department,
the major joked. Major crossroads were signposts carved with the visage of scholarly old gentlemen and enchanted to provide travel information for passers-by.
Oh, I don't know what I'm doing out here. I've been tailing a Lobothian since yon, and now it seems that all I've accomplished is to get lost,
Jessie confided.
Well, little missy, you haven't done too badly. Any Lobothian around this area would more than likely hail from the yonder forest. Any paths leading south will lead you there. You should go east, back to the main road, and turn south. It won't be long until you see the fork in the road. Turn left and head on into the tree line.
Yonder forest? I'll have you know I'm Princess Jessica. Are you sure you want to be responsible for sending me into a place that will swallow my soul?
She said sternly, trying to mask her fear.
Ha ha ha! My lady, my whole family comes from the yonder forest, and I can personally vouch for the quality and character of the enchantments you'll find. Top quality trees, just aces.
Jessica followed the major's instructions until reaching the huge silver fork at the head of 4 branching paths. Each tine had a destination etched. She tined left and stopped just before entering the forest.
My word,
she addressed her rocker.
Have you ever seen such grand trees? How daunting. No wonder legends persist that the forest will haunt your soul, or induce cravings of potted meat food product.
The rocker nickered but had no opinion to offer. The sun would be setting in a couple of hours, and she intended to find safe lodgings before that happened. She prayed to find a kind stranger who could help her locate the wolf being's village. Lobothians, to her, were creatures of mystery, and she feared them. Yet she didn't sense a savage beast when she made eye contact with the one she followed.
Oh, I really don't want to go there. Am I supposed to forget a lifetime of horror stories at the word of a public works sign?
This time her rocker tooted, much as rockers will.
Right. Anything is better than remaining here. Onward!
Jessica flicked the reins and the two slipped beneath the darkened canopy.